As you saw in the last video, I paid my respects to Jonathan Huber and gave my support and love to his family during this tragic time. Jonathan Huber, of course, known to AEW fans recently as Mr. Brodie Lee, known to independent fans, Ring of Honor, and CZW fans as Brodie Lee, and most notably known to WWE fans as Luke Harper, part of the Wyatt family. And like I said, this is a huge loss for wrestling fans and for the wrestling world. And I spoke of everybody showing their, pointing out tributes and pointing out support for his family during this time. Those including even Stephanie McMahon from WWE, who said that they had bonded over their love for their children. And although that's nice of her to say, and I know she truly means that from the heart, unfortunately, speaking of WWE, there is one thing that's going to happen that none of us are going to be fans of, and I don't even think Stephanie is a fan of this either. And that is knowing WWE and how they're always trying to be a step ahead of the competition, always try to prove that they are the be-all, end-all of wrestling. Knowing WWE, they will probably try to use this passing, along with what happened with Matt Hardy earlier this year, among other things, to get talent to re-sign for another few years to the company. And I know that sounds awful to say, and I know some of you might say they wouldn't do that. And perhaps the likes of Stephanie McMahon and her husband Paul Levesque, known as Triple H, maybe they wouldn't do that. But one cannot speak for Vince McMahon. One cannot speak of that man's, how do I put this, that man's ego to want to be the very best in the business, to be the king of pro wrestling, sports entertainment, no matter what the cost. To be the one that has the most notable roster in wrestling. And if he has to use these kind of tactics to get people to resign, to basically scare them into resigning for another few years, then that's what he's going to do. And unfortunately, that is a reality that none of us can appreciate, none of us can respect, none of us can be fans of. But that's how the business world is. Whether it's pro wrestling, pro sports, whether it's the business world in general. There are companies galore that are cutthroat, that will use cutthroat, underhanded tactics to get what they want. And Vince McMahon and those in charge of WWE contract negotiations are no different. Mostly Vince McMahon. And I know some people may say we don't know that guy very well, and that anything people are saying about him is just, hearsay, and misinterpretations and stuff. Why don't you ask Jonathan Huber how he felt about Vince towards the end? Yeah, there were probably intentions by Vince to push him, but Vince wanted him to change up his character, wanted him to be this cartoonish character with a southern accent, when in reality he's from Rochester, New York, not Kentucky. Ask him how he felt about him. And believe me, if you go back and you listen to some of his interviews, Jonathan holds nothing back about how he felt about Vince towards the end and how he was treating him. I mean, yeah, during the early portion he gave him opportunities, but then all of a sudden out of nowhere he wants him to do this, and he wasn't fond of that. He didn't like that. That wasn't him. He wanted to show that he was more than that. And he had opportunities to do so, but then they took it away. And true, when they took it away and they gave him something different, it was a success. He went with it. It gave him success. But still, towards the end and throughout, he was always told, always suggested by Vince to go one way instead of going a way he knew was better. And that right there, from the man who recently passed, tragically, will give you an idea of what or how Vince McMahon is. You know, true, he might be a fan of certain superstars. He might put on a different persona, a different face when he knows a documentary is being filmed about him or a wrestler talking with him or whatever. But behind the scenes, when the cameras aren't rolling, obviously he's a different person. And what he is somebody that will do whatever it takes to succeed. And knowing Vince McMahon, he will use what happened to Matt Hardy in AEW earlier this year, and what happened, and this tragedy, this tragic loss, as a means to get people to re-sign with his company, as a means to scare them into agreeing to the terms in the contract, to the payment, the salary payment he's willing to give them. He'll do that. And that there is the real tragedy out of all this. Using unfortunate, tragic events and losses to get what you want, to get ahead. Now again, like I said, some of you may say that's not possible, that won't happen. And like I said, the likes of Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, and even Shane McMahon may not approve of it. They may not support it, but they're not their dad. They're not someone that's willing to do whatever it takes to succeed and win. And that's the real tragedy in this. That someone like him, who is so out of touch in the eyes of many fans and many people inside the business and many former talents, that he is willing to use something like this, something like what happened to Matt Hardy, as a means to get what he wants, to get people to resign with his promotion. So don't be surprised if in the next few months, the next year, all these superstars' contracts who are up in 2021, 2022, don't be surprised if if news comes out that they have resigned for another few years, despite how you view them being treated or given opportunities. Because the reason they'll resign is Vince is going to use tactics like the passing. He's going to use these underhanded tactics, like using the tragic passing of Jonathan Huber and what happened to Matt Hardy in AEW earlier this year, as a means to get what he wants, to get them to resign. And that's just the reality of all businesses. It's just the reality. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. Alyx, just Alyx, I would like to hear what you have to say, maybe on a response. OTRS Central, let me know what you have to say. Anybody that talks about wrestling, give me your thoughts. Comment down below. Have a good day. I'm out.